everyone, my name is Tori, this is Novel Life, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a really fun video that I've seen some of my friends do on BookTube, specifically Sam from Sam Reads a Little. She did this video, I think about a month ago, when there was all these new releases and she kind of read a couple of them and she told you if they were worth the hype. I thought that was a really good idea because I read some newly released books. All four of the books that I read that I'm going to talk about today are all within like the top 30, top 25 in the Amazon charts. So I thought it'd be interesting to kind of give you my thoughts on these books and tell you if they're worth the hype and if you should read them. So I'm going to start with one that I recently read. I had the advanced listener copy through Libro FM, and that is Happy Place by Emily Henry. So this book is one that I would definitely think is a good book for the summer. I think it is a really interesting read, really easy read, something you could pick up and kind of just, like fall into a nice contemporary romance story. I will say I gave this book 4.5 stars. When I read it, I think the audiobook definitely helped me get through this book. So if you are someone who doesn't listen to audiobooks, I think you might have a little bit of a hard time kind of keeping interest in the book. I feel like it's one of those books that you can easily pick up and put down if you were reading it physically. But with audiobooks, I feel like sometimes they can help you get through books, but also make your reading experience better. Well, I personally really enjoyed the book. I think that it is worth the read. Do I think it's worth the hype? Right now it's number 11 in the Kindle store and it came out about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it's been out for almost a month. It's still in the top 50 of Amazon. So would I say it's worth the hype for it to be like in the top 20? I think if you listen to the audiobook, yes, but I think the physical book, no. I hope that makes sense though. But basically, if you don't know what this book is, it is a second chance romance, kind of summer vacation. Our female character has these other two best friends that she goes to this like summer house. One of her friend's parents own this summer house and they go for a week and they just hang out, get caught up on their life, just spend time together, right? They have a Taco Tuesday. They do things every single year, the same week, the same days. So it's really interesting. They have they go out on like little girls' nights and stuff like that. But this year, their partners or significant others are joining them. So when her friend picks her up from the airport to take her to the summer house, she's like, "Oh, how's your fiance? How is he doing?" And she's like, "Oh, he's fine." But what everyone doesn't know is that they actually are not together anymore. So it's her ex-fiance. But her friends don't know that. She never told them. She just doesn't want to get into it and stuff like that. So her friends invite him and he shows up. So they are forced together in the same room, in the same bed for this week. And they're kind of, it's one of those things where people break up for not because they don't love each other, not because they're not meant to be together, but there are just other things that are going on in each other's lives separately that makes it difficult to work through, so they kind of need a break. And that's kind of what happens in this book. And when they're forced together for this week, they're kind of forced to work things out. They both didn't really get closure in their relationship, so they talk things out and stuff like that. So it is second chance in that way. I personally enjoyed the story. I think it's borderline romance, women's fiction. I think it's like 60-40. 60% romance, 40% women's fiction. So, but I think if you've read Emily Henry before, you're kind of expecting that. A lot of her books read that way. So I would say it's worth the enjoyment. But if you were someone who knows where I can get the pink hardcover book, please let me know. Because Barnes & Noble only has the yellow hardcover and I want the pink. So if you know, tell me. Drop it in the comments, please and thank you. The next book that I want to talk about is one that when I'm filming this video, it's number 8 out of 100. That is huge because this author, I don't know if she's ever had a book that's newly released that jumped to the charts so quickly, and that's One and Only by Carla Sorenson. I have read Carla Sorenson's older books, and I think that she's a solid contemporary and sports romance writer. I think that she does a lot of things really, really well. Now, this book, I would say, do I think out of all of her books, this one deserves to be number 8 at the time I'm filming this? No. I don't think it's worth the hype. A lot of people who've gotten advanced art copies, and while the cover is very pretty, both the people cover and the discreet cover, I don't know, I just felt like there was something missing with this book when I read it. It didn't hit the same way as like some of the books in the Washington Wolf series or some of the books in the Ward Sister series for me. And that makes me a little sad because, don't get me wrong, I am happy that she is in the top 100, but I personally don't think that, I don't know. I just don't think it's her most hyped book. It should be read out of all of her backlist. I don't know what she put into it. It probably is the way that she marketed it. Now, this is marketed as a single dad fake marriage, fake engagement romance. Basically, our female character, she is going through some things with her dad. Her dad is sick. Basically, she wants her dad to see her. It's really her stepdad. It's the person that raised her. See her get married, and he needs someone, shows that he's trustworthy and has like stability in his life because he's on a football team. And he's always crazy busy. His daughter is super, super sweet. She is extremely shy. And one thing I will say that this book does really, really well is that sometimes with single parent romances, whether it's the mom or the dad that's a single parent, the kids aren't always in the book. But this one, the kid, she is always around. The daughter, she is always around. She's always there. She always plays an intricate part in the discussions and stuff like that. And I personally really enjoyed that. Now, I will say that I listened to the audiobook, and while the audiobook was done well, I liked the narrators. I felt like the story dragged a little bit at the beginning and in the middle. And I gave it 3.5 stars when I read it. It's not the worst book that I've ever read. It was pretty average, but nothing like stood out to me. It is an extremely slow burn book. Like if you've read Marietta Zapata, like that slow burn. Nothing happens until the last 20% with like romance. So if you're looking for, you know, something that has high spice, high sexy times, not this book. Do not go into this thinking that. This is one of those books where it is a romance, but it's not, I don't know. I just felt like there was something missing compared to like some of her other series. And I hope that makes sense. Now, I would say if you are a fan of Carla Sorenson, then go ahead, read this book. It's probably going to be worth the hype to you. If you've never read her before, I don't think that this book is worth the hype in that way, that you should pick this one up to see if her writing's for you. I would say pick up one of her other books. That's just me. But yeah, that's my, is it worth the hype? If you've read Carla Sorenson before, you're a big fan. Yes. If you haven't read her, no, it's not worth the hype. The next book I want to talk about is, at the time I'm filming this, is number 18 on the Amazon charts, and that is Until I Get You by Claire Contreras. So we all know that hockey romances have been in everyone's TBR, on everyone's read list. Everyone's talking about hockey romances. Like, I can't even tell you the last time where I've seen sports get into book talk as much as hockey did during the playoffs. When I tell you, my For You page on TikTok was filled up with so many like book talk crossovers with hockey teams. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I love it. I love seeing that. It's great for marketing. But at the same time, everyone's just reading hockey romances. So I feel like a lot of hockey romances are hyped up. Don't get me wrong. I personally don't think that this one is as good as some of the other ones I've read. And I'm going to tell you why. Because this one is a little bit more romantic suspense. It's labeled as a darker romance. I don't think it's dark. I just think it has a lot of romantic suspense in it. So that's me as a reader when I go into it. I think dark romance, a dark hockey romance, you're going to have, you know, different things between the female and the male characters that's like bully, that kind of darkness, not romantic suspense. I think it should be titled romantic suspense hockey romance, if that makes sense. And with all that being said, I gave this book 4 stars. I'm not someone who is big into romantic suspense, but with this book, you really dive into the romance between the characters. And they are two people that they have a very whirlwind relationship at the very beginning in college. They are, together for 3 months. They fall hard and they fall quick in love. And it is really sweet to read. I did love seeing that. She is someone who doesn't always open up to him because of her past, which goes into the romantic suspense part of it. She has someone that's following her. She has a lot of secrets she's keeping, and she slowly starts to open up to him. And there's a time jump towards 50% of the book, 50% of the book, where it fast forwards 3 years. Something happens to where she just has to leave town and she doesn't really get to explain things to him. So obviously in the second half of the book, he is mad. He wants his revenge. He doesn't understand why she left him and didn't give him any explanation. But now he is playing for the NHL. Like, he plays during college, but he plays NHL in the last half of the book, but he's like taking a step back because he's trying to find her and where she's been, what she's doing, what's going on. And so he takes a step back, but then he goes into being this billionaire type guy, takes over for his father's company. So it has a lot of things thrown into it. And that's why I don't think it's worth the hype, because there wasn't like a hyper focus other than his revenge, her keeping secrets, and their love. So it is friends to enemies to lovers. And that enemies part does not last very long. So I don't want you, if you don't like enemies to lovers, like, it's still really good. It's just one of those things I'm like, if you would have just talked, you wouldn't have had to spend 3 years apart. Do you know what I mean? But I will say that I did give it 4 stars. It is solid. It's just not what I was expecting when it's labeled like a dark hockey romance, which I think is why a lot of people downloaded it, because there are a lot of people who love dark romance and that love hockey romance, and there's usually not that crossover, which is exactly why I picked it up, because I was extremely excited. But it's not dark in the sense of Sinner by Sarah Simone, or Even If It Hurts by Sam Mariano. It's not dark in those ways. It's more romantic suspense. So if you haven't read it, do not go into this book thinking you're going to get that kind of dark. You're going to get romantic suspense. It's 100% romantic suspense with some hockey thrown in there, with a really good love story. It's solid. They love each other. They know how they feel for each other, but it is very insta-lovey. But this one, I would say I don't necessarily think it's worth the hype, but I think it's worth the read, if that makes sense. Like, it's not something that you need to go pick up because you're missing all of this out. No, I don't think it's one of those books. I think that it's worth the read if that's something that interests you. If you like romantic suspense crossed over with a little bit of hockey, and it's pretty solid romance. I will say that. Now, the last book I want to talk about is actually currently number 25 on the Amazon charts. And it's one that has been talked about a lot, and that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yara. So I am someone who, as soon as this book came out, I picked it up at Barnes & Noble. I actually bought it early because I had it out at Barnes & Noble early. It's the Sprayed Edges. And I've been looking for a solid fantasy romance that's not going to let me down, that's going to be something different that I haven't read before. And the dragon rider aspect in this is what looped me in and made me want to read it, if that makes sense. And I personally gave this book 5 stars. I think it is worth the hype. I think it's worth the hype in the way, if you are looking for a book that you want to get sucked into the world, where you can just pick up a book, escape your reality that you're living, be in Violet's head, be in all the things that she's struggling with, all the things that she's going through, the love story that she's feeling, the things that she's feeling with her family, the grief that she's feeling of losing her brother, all of these, and her dad, and all of these things like that. That's worth the hype, in my opinion. I think it's a very solid fantasy romance that opens up this world that is just so easy. It is very easy to understand the world building, understand what's going on, how the magic works, how the dragon riding works, how the, different aspects of the college works, who is the hierarchy and stuff like that. It is very easy to understand. And I will say that because there are secrets, you still find it easy to understand. Sometimes the secrets can be annoying because bits and pieces are left out, but I personally really enjoyed it. There is some, criticism with, it's not the best writing. It's very slow at the very beginning. And those things are very, very valid. I've heard those and I completely understand that. I am someone who, while this is worth the hype, the beginning of the book, the first 50% is very slow. And the reason why I am okay with that is because I know this is a first book in a series. I think Rebecca Yara said that it is a 5-book series. It's going to be slow. You're going to have to build up how this character is feeling. You have to get attached to the character, Violet in this case. You have to understand what she's going through in her life. And I will say the chronic illness rep in here of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is, I think, very well done. It is something that every single decision that she makes in her life and every move that she's making and everything that she's doing and training for, that is at the forefront of her thoughts. And I personally, as someone who does have a chronic illness, really appreciates that. So if you're someone who's looking for a fantasy romance that you can get sucked into the world and just forget about everything, because that's kind of how it happened for me, then this book is definitely worth the hype. I think that if you're going into it kind of having some hesitation, I don't think it's going to be worth the hype for you. But I read this book before I saw anyone else's review, so it was kind of like I read the book without knowing what my friends thought or anything like that. I just wanted to read it and wanted to get lost. So I think that's why it was such a good experience for me. But I personally would recommend this to a lot of people if you're looking for that fantasy romance that is just easy to fall into, easy to understand. It's not taking a lot of brain power. Like, it's just natural to read. I will say, do not listen to the audiobook. I heard the audiobook is not the best quality. I would physically read it if you're going to pick up this book. That is my first worth the hype video. I think this was actually really fun to pick 4 books and tell you if they're worth the hype. I want to do another video like this in June. So if you have any June releases that you are interested in like my thoughts specifically, and if I can tell you if they're worth the hype or not, drop a couple in the comments and I will kind of, you know, read them throughout June and kind of do another video towards the end of June. This is something you like. Drop me a question mark emoji, like the red question mark or the exclamation point emoji for this video, because like worth the hype, question mark, exclamation point, you know, that kind of thing. Anyway, I'm gonna say thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content for me. As always, I hope you're living a novel life, and I will see you in my next one. Bye guys.